When billionaire CEO Graham Langston makes a reckless bet after too many drinks, he never expects the quiet maid who walks through the door to change his entire world. Ava Sinclair has her own dreams and refuses to be anyone's punchline, but sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places. This is a story about two people from different worlds learning that true partnership means seeing each other as equals, not saviors or projects. It's about building something real together, one honest conversation at a time. Before we start this story, comment below from where you are watching us. The summer sun beat down on the sprawling Langston estate in Sonoma County. Ava Sinclair wiped sweat from her brow as she pushed her cleaning cart through the mansion's east wing. At 28, she wasn't where she thought she'd be in life. With student loans piling up and her aunt's medical bills growing by the day, she had taken this job out of necessity, not choice. "Remember to clean Mr. Langston's study today," Mrs. Peterson, the house manager, reminded her. "He's having guests over tonight." Ava nodded silently. In the 6 months she'd worked at the estate, she'd perfected the art of invisibility. Head down, no eye contact, do the job, go home. It was easier that way. "And Ava," Mrs. Peterson added, "stay out of their way. These are important people." Important people. As if Ava wasn't important. As if her dreams of opening a literacy center for underprivileged girls didn't matter, because she was just the help. "Yes, ma'am," she replied quietly. Across the mansion, in the West Wing's conference room, Graham Langston ran his hand through his dark hair in frustration. At 35, he was one of the youngest CEOs in the tech industry, with a net worth that made headlines and a dating history that filled gossip columns. "The board is concerned about your image, Graham," his older sister Vanessa said, passing him a folder. "Your constant rotation of model girlfriends isn't helping the company's reputation." Graham scoffed. "The company's stock is up 40% this quarter. What more do they want?" "They want stability," Vanessa replied. "Maturity. A CEO who doesn't make headlines for breaking hearts." "So what? I should get married, have 2.5 kids and a golden retriever." Graham laughed bitterly. "Not happening." Later that evening, Graham's inner circle gathered in his private lounge. The alcohol flowed freely as the conversation turned to Graham's personal life. "Come on, man," said Marcus, his college roommate turned marketing director. "Even I got married last year. What are you so afraid of?" "I'm not afraid," Graham shot back. "I'm selective." "Selective?" laughed Richard, his CFO. "You dated 3 different women named Jessica last year." The room erupted in laughter. Graham's jaw tightened. "You're so scared of commitment," Marcus continued. "I bet you wouldn't marry anyone unless it was scripted." Something in Graham snapped. He stood up, glass in hand, and addressed the room with the arrogance that had built his empire. "Fine," he declared. "I'll marry whoever walks in next." The room fell silent. Then someone whispered, "He can't be serious." But Graham had made the challenge, and his pride wouldn't let him back down. The door creaked open. Ava Sinclair stepped into the room, broom in hand. She had come to clean up a spill Mrs. Peterson had told her about. The moment she entered, she felt every eye turn to her. Silence hung in the air. Graham Langston froze, his drink halfway to his lips. This was not what he expected. Not a visiting executive or a secretary, or even one of the kitchen staff, but the quiet maid, who always seemed to be there, and not there at the same time. And yet, he couldn't look away. Ava caught the tail end of the conversation as she entered. She wasn't deaf or stupid. She knew exactly what this was. Another rich man's joke, another moment where she was the punchline without her consent. Her spine straightened, her grip tightened on the broom. Without a word, she turned to leave. "Wait," Graham called out. "What's your name?" Ava paused but didn't answer. She didn't owe him a response. "I asked you a question," Graham said, his voice softer now, lacking its usual command. "I heard you," Ava replied, still facing the door. "And I choose not to answer." She walked out, leaving Graham standing with his mouth slightly open. No one spoke to him that way. No one. The next morning, Ava arrived at work to find Mrs. Peterson waiting for her with a concerned expression. "Mr. Langston was asking about you," she said, her voice low. "About your schedule, how long you've worked here." Ava's stomach dropped. "Am I being fired?" "No, but—" "Listen to me carefully, Mrs." Peterson said, gripping Ava's arm. "Don't let him get in your head. You're not one of them. Men like Graham Langston don't see women like us as people. We're furniture at best, entertainment at worst." Ava pulled her arm away. "I know exactly what I am and what I'm not, Mrs. Peterson. I don't need reminding." But throughout the day, Ava noticed Graham appearing in rooms she was cleaning, not speaking, just watching. It made her skin prickle with awareness. On the third day, he brought her coffee during her break. "I don't drink coffee," she said, not looking up from her phone where she was texting her aunt. "Tea, then? Water? Champagne?" he offered with a smile that had charmed investors out of millions. Ava finally looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "This. Following me around. Bringing me drinks. Is this about what happened the other night? Because if it is, I'm not interested in being your joke." Graham sat down across from her. "It wasn't a joke. It wasn't serious either," Ava countered. For a moment, Graham seemed lost for words. "How long have you worked here?" 6 months. "And I've never really noticed you before." "That was the point," Ava said, standing up. "My break's over." The next week followed a strange pattern. Graham would clear out rooms Ava was supposed to clean just to talk with her. He asked about her life, her interests, her dreams. At first she gave him short, impersonal answers, but gradually, almost against her will, she found herself talking more. "Why a literacy center?" Graham asked one afternoon as Ava dusted his bookshelves. "Because where I grew up, girls weren't expected to read. They were expected to serve," she answered. "Books were my escape. They showed me a different world was possible." Graham watched her, fascinated. "You speak differently than you did when we first met." "You speak differently too," Ava observed. "Less like a CEO and more like a person." Graham laughed, a genuine laugh, not the calculated chuckle he used in board meetings. "Maybe that's because with you I can just be Graham, not Graham Langston, CEO." One day, as Ava was mopping the kitchen floor, Graham came in and leaned against the counter. "My sister thinks I'm having a breakdown," he said casually. "Are you?" Ava asked, continuing to work. "Maybe. I haven't been on a date in 3 weeks. Haven't yelled at anyone in 2. My assistant thinks I'm dying." Despite herself, Ava smiled. "Sounds serious." "It is," Graham agreed. "And it's all your fault." Ava stopped mopping. "How do you figure that?" "You challenged me." "No one challenges me." "That sounds like a you problem," Ava said, returning to her work. Graham stepped closer. "Have dinner with me." "No." "Why not?" Ava looked up at him. "Do you always turn people into punchlines?" The question hit Graham like a physical blow. He was quiet for so long that Ava thought he might not answer. Finally, he said quietly, "Only when I'm too afraid to be honest." The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the arrogant CEO she'd heard about. This was something else. "I'm not having dinner with you," Ava said, "but I'll have lunch here tomorrow in the kitchen." Graham's face lit up. "Is that a yes?" "It's a maybe," Ava corrected him. "A trial run." The next day, Graham cancelled 2 important meetings to have lunch with Ava in the kitchen. He arrived to find her making sandwiches. "I hope you like tuna," she said. "I hate tuna," he admitted. "Good thing I made chicken then," Ava replied with a small smile. They sat at the kitchen island, and for the first time Graham found himself talking about real things, not business strategies or stock options, but his childhood, his parents' expectations, the pressure he felt to always be perfect. "Is that why you date all those models?" Ava asked. "To rebel?" Graham considered this. "Maybe at first. Now I think it's just easier. There's no risk when you know it won't last." "That sounds lonely," Ava said. "What about you? Are you dating anyone?" Graham asked, trying to sound casual. Ava laughed. "When would I have time? Between working here, taking night classes, and caring for my aunt, I barely have time to sleep." "Your aunt? You've mentioned her before." "She raised me after my parents died," Ava explained. "Now she has MS and the medical bills keep piling up." Graham was quiet for a moment. "I'd like to help." "No," Ava said firmly. "I don't want your money." "Why not? I have plenty." "Because I don't believe in fairy tales," Ava said simply. "What does that mean?" "It means love shouldn't come with conditions or jokes." She stood up and began clearing their plates. "Or charity." Over the next few weeks, something shifted between them. Graham stopped dating entirely. He became more focused at work, less sharp with his employees. His team noticed the change but couldn't pinpoint the cause, and Ava, despite her best judgment, found herself looking forward to their conversations. Graham had begun helping her with small tasks, folding towels, arranging books, even attempting to make his own bed. "You're terrible at this," Ava laughed as he struggled with a fitted sheet. "I've never done it before," he admitted sheepishly. "Never? Not even in college?" "I had a service," Graham said, then realized how that sounded. "I know, I'm spoiled." "Yes, you are," Ava agreed, taking the sheet from him. "Watch and learn." One evening, Graham found Ava in the library, her cleaning forgotten as she lost herself in a book. "Jane Austen?" he asked, peering over her shoulder. Ava jumped. I was just taking a break. I've never read her, Graham admitted. You should. She understood people, saw through their pretensions. Graham sat beside her. Read to me. And so Ava read, her voice bringing the words to life in a way Graham had never experienced. When she finished the chapter, they sat in comfortable silence. Ava, Graham said finally, would you have dinner with me now? A real dinner, not in the kitchen. Ava closed the book. Why? Because I think I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. Ava's heart raced, but her face remained calm. You don't even know me. I know enough, Graham insisted. I know you work harder than anyone I've ever met. I know you love your aunt and would do anything for her. I know you read classics and listen to jazz through that broken earbud you think I haven't noticed. And I know that when you smile, really smile, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Ava stood up. This isn't real, Graham. This is a rich man's fantasy. The billionaire and the maid? It's a cliché. It's only a cliché if it isn't true, Graham argued. Give us a chance, Ava. One real date. Against every rational thought, Ava found herself nodding. One date, but not here. Somewhere normal people go. Graham grinned. I can do normal. Little did either of them know that as their feelings grew stronger, forces were already gathering that would test their newfound connection. Because in Graham Langston's world, nothing was ever simple, especially not love. The whispers had already begun among the staff, the CEO and the maid. And soon, those whispers would reach ears that had the power to destroy everything before it had truly begun. The small Italian restaurant in downtown Sonoma was nothing like the five-star establishments Graham Langston typically frequented. The checkered tablecloths, candles stuck in wine bottles, and the owner who greeted customers by name all felt foreign to him. But the genuine smile on Ava's face made it worth it. Luigi, Ava called out to the older man behind the counter. How's Maria doing? Much better, thanks to your aunt's remedies, Luigi replied, giving Ava a warm hug before eyeing Graham suspiciously. And who is this? This is Graham, Ava said simply. A friend. Graham extended his hand. Nice to meet you. Luigi's handshake was firm, his gaze assessing. Any friend of Ava's is welcome here, but just so you know, I have a shotgun in the back. Luigi, Ava scolded, but Graham laughed. I'll keep that in mind, he promised. Once they were seated in a corner booth, Graham looked around with curiosity. You come here often? Every Sunday after visiting my aunt, Ava explained. Luigi gives me leftovers to take home. That's nice, Graham said, trying to imagine a world where restaurant leftovers were something to be grateful for. Ava studied his face. This makes you uncomfortable, doesn't it? Being in a place where your name doesn't open doors. No, Graham said quickly, then sighed. Maybe a little, but not because I think I'm too good for it. It's just different. Different can be good, Ava said, opening her menu even though she already knew what she wanted. Throughout dinner, Graham found himself fascinated by how Ava interacted with the world. She knew the waiters' children's names. She complimented the cook on his new sauce recipe. She existed fully in a community, while Graham realized he lived above everything, isolated by wealth and power. How do you do that? He asked as they walked along the quiet street after dinner. Do what? Connect with people so easily. Ava considered this. I don't see people as what they can do for me. I see them as who they are. Graham stopped walking. Is that how you see me now? As who I am? I'm trying to, Ava admitted. It's not easy when you have a mansion and I clean it for a living. Forget the mansion, Graham said, taking her hand. Forget my company, my money. Who do you think I am, just as a man? Ava looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. I think you're someone who's been alone even when surrounded by people, someone who's just starting to wake up. Graham felt exposed, seen in a way he never had been before. It was terrifying and exhilarating. Can I see you again? He asked softly. Not at the estate, just like this. Ava hesitated. I work for you, Graham. Then quit, he said impulsively. She pulled her hand away. And do what? Live off your charity? That's not who I am. That's not what I meant, Graham backtracked. I want to see where this goes without the complication of you working for me. Life is complications, Ava said, and I need my job. Graham nodded, understanding. Then we'll figure it out. But I'd like to see you again, Ava, outside of work. After a moment, Ava nodded. I'd like that too. The next morning, Graham's sister Vanessa stormed into his office. What's going on with you? She demanded. You missed the fundraiser last night and I just got a call saying you've cancelled your date with Sophia Miller. I was busy, Graham replied, not looking up from his computer. Busy? With what? Or should I say who? Vanessa's eyes narrowed. There are rumors, Graham. Now he looked up. What rumors? That you've been spending time with one of the maids. Please tell me it's not true. Graham leaned back in his chair. Her name is Ava. And yes, we had dinner last night. Vanessa sank into the chair across from him. Have you lost your mind? She's the help, Graham. Do you know what the board would say? What the press would do with this? I don't care, Graham said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. Well, you should, Vanessa snapped. This company isn't just about you. It's our family legacy. What would Dad say? Dad is dead, Graham said coldly, and I'm not discussing this further. Vanessa stood up. You need to end this, whatever it is, before it becomes a problem. After she left, Graham sat quietly, thinking about what she'd said. 10 days ago, he would have agreed with her. The old Graham would never have risked his reputation on someone like Ava, but something was changing in him and he couldn't ignore it. At the Langston estate, Ava was having problems of her own. The other staff had noticed the change in Graham's behavior, and the whispers followed her everywhere. He's just using you, said Tina, another maid, as they folded laundry. Men like him always do. You don't know what you're talking about, Ava replied, focusing on her work. Don't I? My cousin worked for the Reynolds family, got involved with their son. Know where she is now, back in Mexico with a baby and no support. Mrs. Peterson joined them, her face grim. Ava, I need to speak with you. In the privacy of the laundry office, Mrs. Peterson didn't mince words. Whatever is happening between you and Mr. Langston needs to stop. It's disrupting the household. Nothing is happening, Ava insisted. Don't lie to me. I've been managing households for 30 years. I know when a man is pursuing a woman. Mrs. Peterson's voice softened slightly. I'm trying to protect you, Ava. Men like Graham Langston don't marry maids. They play with them and discard them. Ava lifted her chin. I appreciate your concern, but my personal life is my business. Not when it affects your work, Mrs. Peterson countered. You've been distracted. Tasks are being left unfinished. Ava couldn't deny it. Her mind had been elsewhere lately. It won't happen again. That evening, when Ava went to clean Graham's study, she found him waiting for her. I've been thinking, he said without preamble. What if I set up a foundation to fund literacy programs? You could run it. Ava froze. What? It would solve our problem. You wouldn't be working for me directly, but you'd be doing something you care about, with proper funding. Ava set down her cleaning supplies. That's your solution? To buy me a job? Graham looked confused. I thought you'd be happy. Happy that you're trying to fix me? Like I'm a problem to be solved with your money. Ava shook her head. This is exactly why this won't work, Graham. You think throwing money at things makes them better. That's not fair, Graham protested. I'm trying to help you achieve your dream. My dream is to earn it myself, Ava said firmly, not to have it handed to me because I caught a rich man's attention. Graham ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Then what do you want from me, Ava? Nothing, she said quietly. Maybe that's what scares you. The tension between them lingered for days. Ava kept her distance, focusing on her work and visiting her aunt after hours. Graham threw himself into his business, staying late at the office to avoid the empty feeling that now permeated his home. But fate intervened when Ava's aunt took a turn for the worse. The call came while she was cleaning the guest bathroom. Miss Sinclair, Mrs. Peterson said, appearing at the door. There's an emergency call for you. Ava's heart dropped as she listened to the hospital nurse explain that her aunt had suffered a severe MS flare-up and was now in intensive care. I need to go, she told Mrs. Peterson, already removing her apron. Of course, the older woman said with genuine sympathy. Take the rest of the day. As Ava rushed toward the staff exit, she collided with Graham. Whoa, he said, steadying her. What's wrong? My aunt, Ava managed, tears threatening. She's in the hospital, I have to go. I'll drive you, Graham said immediately. No, I can take the bus. Ava, please, let me help. Something in his voice, the sincerity, the concern, broke through her resistance. She nodded. The drive to the hospital was tense and quiet. When they arrived, Graham parked in the emergency zone, ignoring the signs. They'll tow your car, Ava warned. Let them, Graham replied, following her inside. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor made Ava look even more worried. A nurse directed them to the ICU waiting room, where a doctor soon approached. Are you Ava Sinclair? The doctor asked. Yes, how is she? Can I see her? Your aunt is stabilized, but this episode was severe. The disease is progressing faster than we anticipated. Ava's legs weakened, and Graham's arm came around her waist, supporting her. "What does that mean?" Graham asked when Ava couldn't. "It means she needs more intensive care. The treatment we discussed last time, the one your insurance wouldn't cover, is now essential, not optional." Ava closed her eyes briefly. "How much?" The doctor named a figure that made her stomach drop. "I understand this is difficult, but we need to make decisions quickly." "Do it," Graham said before Ava could respond. "Whatever treatment she needs." "Graham, no," Ava protested. "Sir, are you family?" the doctor asked. "No, but I'm covering the expenses," Graham said firmly. "All of them." The doctor looked between them, then nodded. "I'll have someone from billing contact you." When they were alone, Ava turned to Graham. "I can't let you do this." "You can and you will," Graham said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "This isn't about us, Ava. This is about your aunt getting the care she needs." "I'll pay you back," she insisted. "Every penny." Graham took her hands. "If that's what you need to accept my help, then fine. But right now let's focus on your aunt." They spent the night at the hospital. Graham sent his driver to bring them food and coffee. He made calls to ensure Ava's aunt got a private room and the best specialists, and not once did he make Ava feel like she owed him anything for it. As dawn broke, they sat side by side in uncomfortable chairs, watching the sunrise through the hospital window. "Thank you," Ava said softly. "Not just for the money, but for being here." Graham looked at her, his eyes tired but warm. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." And in that moment, something shifted between them. The barriers Ava had built began to crumble. Over the next few weeks, as her aunt slowly recovered, Graham showed Ava a side of himself few people ever saw. He visited the hospital regularly, bringing books and small gifts. He learned about MS, asking thoughtful questions of the doctors. He even sat with Ava's aunt while Ava took breaks, reading to her from the classics Ava had mentioned she loved. "Your young man is quite something," her aunt said one afternoon when they were alone. "He's not my young man," Ava protested weakly. Her aunt gave her a knowing look. "He's falling in love with you, Ava, and unless I'm mistaken, you're falling for him too." Ava couldn't deny it anymore. Against all odds, against all common sense, she was falling in love with Graham Langston. At the Langston estate, changes were happening too. Graham had instructed Mrs. Peterson to adjust Ava's duties so she could spend more time with her aunt. He began clearing his own schedule, delegating tasks that once he would have insisted on handling personally. His executive team noticed the change. "You seem different," Marcus commented during a strategy meeting. "More, I don't know, human." Graham smiled slightly. "Maybe I am." "It's that Maid, isn't it?" Richard asked bluntly. "The one from the joke that night." "Her name is Ava," Graham said, his voice hardening. "And yes, she's part of it. She's shown me there's more to life than quarterly reports and stock options." The men exchanged glances. "Well, whoever she is, she's good for you," Marcus said finally. "I haven't seen you this focused or this happy in years." As autumn turned the Sonoma Valley vineyards golden, Ava's aunt was finally released from the hospital. Graham offered his guest house for her recovery. "It's closer to the hospital," he pointed out when Ava hesitated, "and it has everything she needs." "What would people say?" Ava worried. "Since when do you care what people say?" Graham challenged. "I don't, but you should. Your company is doing better than ever," Graham interrupted. "And even if it wasn't, some things are more important." In the end, practical considerations won out. The guest house was perfect for someone recovering from a serious illness, and it meant Ava could be close to both her aunt and her job. As they settled her aunt into the guest house, Graham watched Ava arrange the room with small touches from their old apartment. Family photos, a hand-knit Afghan, the worn copy of Pride and Prejudice that had belonged to Ava's mother. "You amaze me," he said softly. Ava looked up. "Why?" "Because you create home wherever you go, with nothing but love and small treasures." Later that evening, after her aunt had fallen asleep, Graham and Ava sat on the guest house porch watching the stars emerge. "I've been thinking," Graham said, breaking the comfortable silence, "about what you said, about wanting to earn your dreams yourself." Ava looked at him curiously. And I respect that, so I have a proposal." "Graham, not that kind of proposal," he assured her with a smile, "though don't rule it out entirely." Ava's heart skipped a beat. "I want to be an investor in your literacy center," Graham continued. "Not a donor, an investor. You do the work, create the business plan, find the location. I'll provide startup capital as a proper business investment." Ava considered this. "You'd be a silent partner?" "As silent as you want me to be," Graham promised. "This would be your vision, your creation. I just want to help make it possible. I'd need to think about it, Ava said carefully. Of course. Graham reached for her hand. Take all the time you need. As they sat there, fingers intertwined under the vast sky, Ava allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, some dreams do come true. But in the Langston corporate offices, storm clouds were gathering. Graham's behavior had not gone unnoticed by the board of directors, and Vanessa Langston was not about to let her brother throw away everything their family had built for a maid with dreams bigger than her station. We need to address the situation with Graham, she told Richard after hours. This infatuation has gone on long enough. Richard nodded. What did you have in mind? Vanessa's smile was cold. I've already called in a specialist, a PR consultant who knows how to handle delicate situations. Little did Ava know that as she was beginning to open her heart, forces were already at work to ensure her fairy tale would never have a happy ending. The PR consultant, Diane Winters, arrived at Langston headquarters the following Monday. With her sharp suit and sharper eyes, she looked exactly like someone who specialized in problems. I understand you have a situation, she said, sitting across from Vanessa in the conference room. My brother has developed an inappropriate relationship with one of our household staff, Vanessa explained. It's becoming a liability. Diane made a note. And what outcome are you looking for? I want it ended cleanly and quietly, Vanessa said, before the press gets hold of it. And if they already have? Vanessa frowned. What do you mean? Diane opened her tablet and showed Vanessa a blurry photo taken outside the hospital. Graham and Ava, holding hands in the parking lot. This was sent to the Business Insider tip line yesterday, Diane explained. They haven't run with it yet, but it's only a matter of time. Vanessa's face hardened. Then we need to get ahead of it. Control the narrative. Or, Diane suggested, we could use it to our advantage. How? The public loves a good romance. Rich man falls for ordinary woman. It's a tale as old as time. Diane leaned forward. With the right spin, this could actually improve Graham's image. Soften those rough edges the board is so concerned about. Vanessa considered this. You're suggesting we embrace this relationship? I'm suggesting we manage it, Diane corrected. Turn it into an asset rather than a liability. What neither of them knew was that Graham had his own meeting that day with a jeweler in downtown Sonoma. As he looked at rings, his phone rang. It was Marcus. You need to get back to the office, his friend said without preamble. Your sister has called in the PR team. They're discussing Ava. Graham's blood ran cold. I'm on my way. When he arrived, the meeting was already in progress. He entered without knocking, startling the women. Graham? Vanessa recovered quickly. This is Diane Winters. She's helping us with a PR strategy. For what? Graham demanded. Diane showed him the photo. Someone sent this to Business Insider. We need to get ahead of it. Graham looked at the image of him and Ava, and something inside him softened. So what's your proposal? I think we should embrace the relationship, Diane said. Turn it into a positive. The CEO who found love with an ordinary working woman. She's not ordinary, Graham said sharply. Of course not, Diane backtracked smoothly. That's just how the media will frame it. But we can shape the narrative. Make it a modern fairy tale. Graham sat down. I'm listening. And as Diane outlined her strategy, Graham found himself actually considering it. Not because he cared about his image, but because he was tired of hiding how he felt about Ava. Tired of pretending this was anything less than what it was. Love. I think I'm actually falling for her, he admitted, interrupting Diane's presentation. Diane smiled. Then maybe it's time we let the public in on the love story. Imagine the headline, Billionaire CEO Marries His Maid. It'll go viral. What none of them realized was that Ava had arrived at the corporate offices, bringing lunch for Graham as a surprise thank you for all he'd done for her aunt. The receptionist, recognizing her from the estate, had waved her toward Graham's office. And as she approached the conference room, the door slightly ajar, she heard every word of Diane's proposal. Her heart shattered. She thought she was becoming his woman, not his brand. Ava backed away from the conference room door, the lunch bag clutched in her trembling hands. The words echoed in her mind. Billionaire CEO marries his maid. It'll go viral. A publicity stunt. That's all she was. A way to soften Graham's image and make his company more relatable. The pain hit her like a physical blow. For weeks she'd been fighting her growing feelings, telling herself that someone like Graham Langston couldn't possibly have genuine interest in someone like her. And now she had proof. She hurried toward the elevator, desperate to escape before anyone saw her. But as the doors opened, Marcus stepped out. "Ava, what are you doing here?" he asked, then noticed her expression. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she managed, pushing past him into the elevator. "Please don't tell Graham I was here." The doors closed before Marcus could respond. In the privacy of the elevator, Ava let the tears come. She'd been a fool, a complete and utter fool. By the time she returned to the Langston estate, Ava had made up her mind. She went straight to the guest house where her aunt was resting. "We need to leave," she announced. Her aunt looked up from her book in surprise. "Leave? But why? This place is perfect for my recovery." "It was a mistake to come here," Ava said, already pulling out their suitcases, "to accept anything from him." "Ava, darling, what happened?" her aunt asked, concerned by the pain in her niece's eyes. Ava paused, suitcase in hand. "He never cared about me. It was all for show, for his company's image." Her aunt studied her face. "Are you sure? That young man looks at you like you're the sun and moon." "I heard him myself," Ava insisted. "Him and his PR team talking about how our story would go viral. Billionaire CEO marries his maid, like I'm some kind of Cinderella storyline they can sell." Her aunt sighed. "And did you stay to hear his side?" "I didn't need to." Ava resumed packing. "We're going to Cousin Marie's. She said we could stay until we find a place." "Ava, please, Auntie, I can't stay here anymore." Her aunt recognized the stubborn set of Ava's jaw, the same expression she'd worn as a child when she'd made up her mind. "All right, but at least leave him a note." "Why? So he can spin that too?" Ava shook her head. "The less he knows, the better." While Ava was helping her aunt pack, Mrs. Peterson knocked on the guest house door. "Ava, Mr. Langston called. He's looking for you," she said, then noticed the suitcases. "What's going on?" "We're leaving," Ava said firmly. "Please tell Mr. Langston I quit." Mrs. Peterson's eyes widened. "Just like that? After everything he's done for you and your aunt?" "Yes, just like that." Ava's voice was hard. "And I'll send him a check for my aunt's medical bills as soon as I can." "This is a mistake," Mrs. Peterson warned. "I've known that man since he was a boy. He cares about you, Ava. Really cares." "He cares about his image," Ava corrected. "There's a difference." As Ava and her aunt drove away in her old Honda, Ava didn't look back at the mansion that had changed her life. She couldn't bear to. Back at Langston headquarters, the meeting had just concluded when Marcus entered. "We have a problem," he told Graham privately. "Ava was here, and from the look on her face when she left, I'd say she overheard something she shouldn't have." Graham's face paled. "When? How long ago?" "About 20 minutes ago. She had a lunch bag." "I think she was surprising you." Graham immediately tried calling Ava, but her phone went straight to voicemail. He tried the estate next. "Mrs. Peterson, is Ava there?" "She was, sir," the house manager replied carefully. "But she's gone now. She and her aunt packed up and left. She asked me to tell you she quits." Graham felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "Did she say where they were going?" "No, sir, but she was very upset. Mentioned something about sending you a check for her aunt's medical bills." Graham hung up and turned to Marcus. "I need to find her. Graham, maybe give her some space." "No, you don't understand. She thinks this was all some PR stunt, that I never cared about her." Graham grabbed his keys. "I have to fix this." But finding Ava proved harder than Graham expected. She had disappeared completely. Her old apartment had new tenants. Her cell phone was disconnected. None of the other staff knew where she had gone. After a week of searching, Graham was desperate. He returned to Luigi's restaurant, hoping the owner might know something. Luigi's welcome was far from warm. "You've got some nerve showing up here." "Please," Graham said. "I just need to know if she's okay." "She's fine," Luigi said coldly. "Better without you." "I never meant to hurt her," Graham insisted. "It was a misunderstanding." Luigi studied him. "You know what I see? A rich man who got bored and played with someone's heart. Ava deserves better." "You're right, she does," Graham agreed. "But I love her, and I need to tell her that." "Love?" Luigi scoffed. "You people throw that word around like it's nothing. Love is actions, not words." Graham leaned forward. "Then let me act. Tell me how to find her so I can make this right." Luigi shook his head. "She doesn't want to be found, especially by you." Defeated, Graham left the restaurant. As he walked to his car, his phone rang. It was Vanessa. "The board wants to meet tomorrow," she said without greeting. "They're concerned about your recent behavior." "I don't care," Graham replied. "Well, you should. There's talk of removing you as CEO if you don't get your act together." Graham laughed bitterly. Let them try. The next day, Graham sat across from the board of directors, his face a mask of indifference as they listed their concerns. Your focus has been compromised, said Walter Reed, the board chairman. Late to meetings, cancelling investor calls, and now this PR disaster with the maid. Her name is Ava, Graham said quietly. The point is, Walter continued, the company needs stable leadership, and right now you're not providing it. Graham looked around the table at the concerned faces. These were people who had known him for years, who had supported his vision, and now they were treating him like a wayward child. You know what I've realized, Graham said, breaking the uncomfortable silence. This company has become more important to all of us than actual human connection. We've sacrificed relationships, family, love, all on the altar of stock prices and market share. That's the price of success, Walter replied. No, that's the price of obsession, Graham countered, and I'm not willing to pay it anymore. He stood up. I'm taking a leave of absence, effective immediately. Vanessa can step in as interim CEO. The board erupted in protests, but Graham raised his hand for silence. This isn't up for discussion. I need to fix what really matters. When I come back, if I come back, it will be as a better man, not just a better CEO. Vanessa followed him into the hallway. Have you lost your mind? Over a maid? Graham turned to face his sister. This isn't just about Ava. It's about who I've become, who we've all become. Dad built this company to make lives better, not to crush the humanity out of everyone involved. That's a nice speech, Vanessa said sarcastically. But what are you really going to do? Chase after a woman who clearly doesn't want to be found? If that's what it takes, Graham replied. But first I need to prove I'm worthy of finding her. Over the next month, Graham disappeared from public view. No parties, no interviews, no social media. The business press speculated wildly about his absence, but Graham paid no attention to the rumors. Instead, he did something no one expected. He volunteered at a literacy program in a low-income neighborhood of Sonoma, not as a donor or a board member, but as a regular volunteer, sorting books and helping children learn to read. Why are you really here? Asked Diana, the program director, after his first week. And don't give me that PR line about giving back. Graham shelved another book before answering. Someone important to me dreamed of creating a place like this. I want to understand why it mattered so much to her. Diana nodded slowly. Well, whoever she is, she has good taste in dreams. As the weeks passed, Graham found himself changing. He listened more, talked less, learned the names of the children and their favorite books, found joy in simple achievements, a struggling reader finishing their first chapter book, a shy child speaking up during story time. He also made a large anonymous donation to women's literacy programs throughout the county, with the only stipulation being that the funds be administered in Ava's name. One evening as he was leaving the center, Diana handed him a flyer. What's this? He asked. A new literacy center is opening across town next month, she explained. They're looking for volunteers with experience. Graham glanced at the flyer, then froze. The name of the center, Sinclair House for Girls, jumped out at him. Who's starting this? He asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Some woman named Ava Sinclair, Diana replied. Apparently she got a grant from a private foundation. They say she's really passionate about literacy for underprivileged girls. Graham stared at the flyer, his heart racing. After all this time, he finally had a lead. That night he called Marcus. I need to know everything about a new literacy center called Sinclair House, he said. Who funded it? Where the money came from? 2 days later, Marcus had answers. It was funded by the Martindale Foundation. They specialize in educational initiatives. I've never heard of them, Graham said, puzzled. That's because they didn't exist until 3 months ago, Marcus explained. It's a shell, Graham. The money came from your sister. Graham was stunned. Vanessa, that's impossible. She wanted Ava gone. Apparently she had a change of heart. She set up the foundation and funneled enough money to get the center started, all anonymously. Graham couldn't believe it. He drove straight to Vanessa's house, demanding answers. Is it true? He asked when she opened the door. Did you fund Ava's literacy center? Vanessa sighed. You'd better come in. Inside, she poured them both a drink before sitting across from her brother. Yes, it's true, she admitted. After you left, I had some time to think about what you said about Dad's vision for the company, about what really matters. But you hated Ava, Graham said, confused. You wanted her out of my life. I wanted what was best for you, Vanessa corrected, and for the company. But seeing you walk away from everything you built, it made me realize how much she must mean to you. She took a sip of her drink. So I tracked her down, offered to fund her dream anonymously. She has no idea the money came from me. Graham was speechless. Don't look so shocked, Vanessa said with a small smile. We're still family, Graham, and families look out for each other, even when they disagree. Does she ever mention me? Graham couldn't help asking. Vanessa's expression softened. No, but sometimes when she thinks no one is watching, she gets this look on her face, like she's remembering something precious that she lost. I need to see her, Graham decided. The center opens next month, Vanessa advised, but Graham, don't go in with guns blazing. This needs to be on her terms. The morning of the Sinclair house opening, Ava stood in the doorway of the converted Victorian home, hardly believing it was real. After months of planning, grant writing, and renovation, her dream was finally coming true. It's beautiful, her aunt said, squeezing her hand. Your parents would be so proud. Ava smiled, pushing away the bittersweet thought that there was someone else she wished could see this moment. Someone who, despite everything, had helped her believe in herself. As she prepared for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, a delivery man arrived with a bouquet of wildflowers. Not roses or orchids, but the simple meadow flowers Ava had once mentioned were her favorites. Tucked inside was a small note that simply read, "May I walk in now? GL." Ava's heart stopped. She looked around wildly, but saw no sign of Graham. Just as she was about to go searching, a journalist from the local paper pulled her aside. "Miss Sinclair, you need to see this," they whispered, holding out their phone. A video was playing. The CEO of Langston's main competitor speaking at a tech conference. "Everyone's talking about Langston's mysterious absence," the man was saying with a smirk. "But let's be honest, we all know he's just funding that literacy center because he seduced the founder. Talk about buying good publicity." Ava felt sick. This was exactly what she had feared. Her center, her life's work, reduced to gossip about her relationship with Graham. And worse, it suggested the funding came from him, casting doubt on her own hard work and credibility. As she stood frozen, trying to process this new blow, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. Graham Langston had arrived, not in a designer suit or with an entourage, but in simple clothes carrying a box of books. He stopped when he saw her, his eyes never leaving her face. The crowd around them seemed to fade away as they looked at each other for the first time in months. "What are you doing here?" Ava finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I heard you needed volunteers," Graham replied simply. "People with experience." Before Ava could respond, the journalist appeared at her side. "Miss Sinclair, is it true that Graham Langston funded this center? Are you two involved?" Ava felt a familiar panic rising. This was exactly what she had run from, becoming a headline, a story, a scandal. But before she could answer, Graham stepped forward. "This center exists because of Ava Sinclair's vision and hard work. The funding came from the Martindale Foundation, which recognized her dedication to literacy. And as for whether we're involved," he looked at Ava, his eyes filled with a question. This was the moment. Ava could send him away, protect herself from more pain, more public scrutiny, or she could take a chance on the man who, despite everything, had never really left her heart. But there was still one thing she needed to know. "That day at your office," she said quietly, "I heard what that PR woman said, about us being a story to sell to the public." Graham's face fell. "Ava, I never agreed to that. When I realized you'd overheard, I tried to find you to explain." "Explain what?" Ava challenged. "That you weren't planning to use our relationship for publicity? That I was falling in love with you," Graham said simply. "That when she suggested making our story public, all I could think was that I didn't want to share you with the world. I wanted you for myself, not as a PR move, not as a Cinderella story, just as Ava, the woman who changed my life." Ava's defenses began to crumble. "Why should I believe you now?" "Because I spent the last 3 months trying to become the kind of man who deserves you," Graham replied. "I took a leave from the company, volunteered at Diana's literacy center, tried to understand the dream that matters so much to you." He stepped closer. "I never funded this place, Ava. I wouldn't do that without your permission. But I did make an anonymous donation to literacy programs in your name, because I believed in your vision, even when you weren't speaking to me." The journalist was recording everything, but Graham didn't seem to care. "I know you have every reason not to trust me," he continued, "but I'm asking for a chance to prove that what I feel for you is real. Not for the cameras, not for the company, just for us." Ava looked into his eyes, searching for the truth. The Graham standing before her now was different from the arrogant CEO she'd first met. There was a humility there, a sincerity that hadn't existed before, but the journalist was still there, still recording, and the video of that other CEO was still circulating. Ava had fought too hard to build this center, to create something meaningful, to have it overshadowed by gossip. "I can't do this right now," she said, stepping back. "Today is about Sinclair House, not about us. These girls deserve their moment." Graham nodded in understanding. "You're right. I'm sorry for the timing." He turned to the journalist. "There's no story here. Ms. Sinclair and I are acquaintances who share a passion for literacy. Today is about her achievement, not about speculation about her personal life. I suggest you focus on the incredible resource she's created for this community." The journalist looked disappointed, but made a few notes before walking away. "Thank you," Ava said softly. "I meant what I said in the note," Graham told her. "I'm asking permission to walk into your life again, Ava, but only if and when you're ready." With that, he handed her the box of books he'd brought and stepped back. "These are for the center. First editions of some classics I thought the girls might enjoy." As Graham turned to leave, Ava called after him. "The volunteer orientation is next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Graham looked back, hope dawning in his eyes. "If you're serious about helping," Ava added, "that would be a good place to start." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a declaration of love, but it was a beginning, a chance. And as Graham nodded and walked away, both of them knew that some stories don't need headlines or viral moments. Sometimes, the most important chapters are written quietly, one small gesture at a time. The following Tuesday, Graham arrived at Sinclair House exactly 15 minutes early. He sat in his car, gathering his courage, remembering Vanessa's advice to take things slowly, on Ava's terms. Inside, Ava was preparing for the volunteer orientation, trying not to watch the clock or the door. She had spent the past week dealing with the fallout from that viral video. Some donors had pulled out, concerned about the center's reputation. Others had doubled down, impressed by her handling of the situation. But through it all, one question kept nagging at her. Had she made a mistake in pushing Graham away, in not listening to his side of the story? The sound of the door opening pulled her from her thoughts, and there he was, dressed in jeans and a simple button-down shirt, looking more like the man who had read to her aunt in the hospital than the CEO who had once declared he'd marry whoever walked in next. "You came," she said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. "I said I would," Graham replied. "I don't make promises I don't intend to keep, not anymore." Other volunteers began to arrive, and Ava shifted into director mode, explaining the center's mission, the programs they offered, and the roles volunteers would play. Throughout her presentation, she was acutely aware of Graham watching her, his face full of admiration. After the orientation, when the other volunteers had left, Graham lingered. "You're amazing at this," he said. "The way you talk about literacy, about giving these girls a voice, it's inspiring." Ava felt a blush creep up her cheeks. "Thank you." "Ava, I think we should talk," she interrupted. "Really talk, but not here." They ended up at a small coffee shop a few blocks away, sitting at a corner table away from curious eyes. "I need to know something," Ava said after they'd settled with their drinks. "That day at your office, what really happened?" Graham took a deep breath. "My sister brought in a PR consultant because someone had taken a photo of us at the hospital. They were worried about how it would look, the CEO and the maid." Ava winced at the label, and Graham immediately regretted his wording. "I'm sorry, that's how they put it, not how I see you," he clarified. "Anyway, this consultant, Diane, suggested we could control the narrative, make it a love story that would improve my image." "And you agreed," Ava said flatly. "No, I didn't," Graham insisted. "I was considering it, yes, but not for the reasons you think. I was tired of hiding how I felt about you, tired of pretending our relationship needed to be kept secret." He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but close. "When I said I was falling for you, that was the only honest part of that conversation. The rest was business talk that meant nothing to me." Ava studied his face, wanting desperately to believe him. "Then why didn't you come after me right away? Why wait 3 months?" "I tried," Graham said. "I looked everywhere, called everyone who might know where you were, but you disappeared completely." "That doesn't answer my question," Ava pressed. "You're Graham Langston. You have resources. You could have found me if you really wanted to." Graham nodded slowly. "You're right. And maybe part of me knew you needed space. That chasing after you immediately would only confirm your worst fears about me, that I was controlling, that I saw you as something to possess." He looked down at his coffee. "So instead, I tried to become someone worthy of finding you, someone who understood your dreams from the inside, not just as a checkbook." "The literacy center where Diana works," Ava said, realization dawning. "That's how you knew about Sinclair House." Graham nodded. I volunteered there for months. No one knew who I was at first. I was just Graham, the new guy who helped with the bookshelves and reading circles. Why? Ava asked, genuinely curious. Because you once told me that love shouldn't come with conditions or jokes, Graham said softly. And I wanted to prove that my love for you didn't. That I didn't want to own you or use you. I wanted to deserve you. Ava felt tears pricking at her eyes. And the anonymous donation? That was just me believing in your dream, Graham said simply. No strings attached. You never had to know it came from me. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of misunderstanding and lost time between them. I was so hurt, Ava finally admitted. I thought everything between us had been calculated. A rich man's game. I know, Graham said, and that's on me. I should have been clearer about how I felt. Should have shut down that PR talk immediately. He looked into her eyes. But Ava, not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you, missed you, wondered if you were happy, if your dream was coming true. Ava felt the walls around her heart beginning to crumble. I missed you too, she whispered. Even when I was angry, even when I convinced myself it was all fake. I missed you. Graham's face lit up with hope. So where does that leave us? I don't know, Ava admitted honestly. My life is complicated right now. The center is just getting started, and that viral video didn't help. I can fix that, Graham offered immediately. No, Ava said firmly. That's exactly what I don't want. I need to handle this my way, build my reputation on my own terms. Graham nodded in understanding. I respect that. So what do you need from me? Ava considered the question carefully. Time, she finally said, and space to figure this out. If we're going to try again, it has to be different, equal. I can't be the maid and you can't be the billionaire. We have to just be Ava and Graham. I'd like that, Graham said softly. To be just Graham, with just Ava. As they left the coffee shop, Graham walked Ava to her car. So, I'll see you at the volunteer session on Thursday, Ava asked. I'll be there, Graham promised. As just another volunteer who believes in what you're doing. He hesitated, then added, and maybe sometimes we could get coffee again as friends. Ava smiled, the first real smile she'd given him since that day in his office. I'd like that. As she drove away, Ava felt lighter than she had in months. The future was uncertain, the path unclear. But for the first time since she'd overheard that conversation, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, some dreams weren't too big to come true. And in his car, Graham made a call to Marcus. I need you to set up a press conference, he said. It's time I came back, but things are going to be different now. Different how? Marcus asked. Graham looked toward the direction Ava had driven. I'm coming back as just Graham. The rest, we'll figure out as we go. The autumn leaves had begun to fall as Graham stood at the podium, facing a room full of reporters. After 3 months away, his return to Langston Technologies was major news. Camera flashes lit up the conference room as he prepared to speak. Thank you all for coming, he began. As you know, I've been on a personal leave of absence. During that time, I've had the opportunity to reflect on my priorities, both personal and professional. In the back of the room, Marcus gave him an encouraging nod. Langston Technologies was founded by my father with a mission to improve people's lives through innovation. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that mission. I became focused on profits over people, image over substance. The reporters scribbled furiously as Graham continued. Today, I'm announcing my return as CEO, but with a renewed commitment to our founding principles. We'll be launching a major educational initiative, partnering with literacy programs throughout the country to bring technology resources to underserved communities. A reporter raised her hand. Mr. Langston, is it true that your personal relationship with Ava Sinclair, founder of the Sinclair House Literacy Center, inspired this initiative? Graham had expected this question. He and Ava had discussed how to handle it. Ms. Sinclair is one of many dedicated educators whose work has inspired our new direction, he said carefully. Her commitment to literacy has certainly opened my eyes to the importance of education accessibility. But the success of Sinclair House is entirely due to her vision and hard work, not any connection to me or this company. Another reporter pressed, but what about the video where Travis Reynolds claimed you funded her center to improve your image? Graham's jaw tightened at the mention of his competitor. Mr. Reynolds' claims are completely false. Sinclair House is funded by the Martindale Foundation, which recognized Ms. Sinclair's qualifications and passion. My personal life is not relevant to today's announcement. After the press conference, Vanessa found Graham in his office. That was well handled, she said, closing the door behind her. You managed to address the rumors without dragging Ava into the spotlight. We agreed it was best to keep things separate, Graham replied. Her work deserves to stand on its own merit. Vanessa sat down across from him. And what about the two of you? Where do things stand? Graham smiled slightly. We're taking it slow, one coffee at a time. And you're okay with that? The man who once had to have everything immediately? I'm learning patience, Graham said. Some things are worth waiting for. At Sinclair House, Ava was dealing with the fallout from Travis Reynolds' viral video. 3 more donors had pulled their support, concerned about the controversy. She sat at her desk, reviewing the budget, trying to figure out how to make up the shortfall. Knock, knock, said a familiar voice. Ava looked up to see her aunt in the doorway. I brought lunch, her aunt said, holding up a bag from Luigi's. You're a lifesaver, Ava said gratefully. I've been staring at these numbers all morning. Her aunt set out the food, then studied Ava's worried face. That bad? We've lost almost 30% of our funding, Ava admitted. The Martindale Foundation is still supporting us, but without those other donors. You'll figure it out, her aunt said confidently. You always do. Ava picked at her sandwich. I saw Graham's press conference. And? He did exactly what we agreed, kept me out of it as much as possible. Her aunt smiled knowingly. You sound disappointed. No, Ava stopped, reconsidering. Maybe a little. Is that terrible? I wanted space, wanted to stand on my own, but part of me wanted him to just claim me, tell the whole world how he feels. That's not terrible, her aunt assured her. It's human. We all want to be chosen, publicly and proudly. But I told him we needed to be equals, Ava sighed, that I needed to build my own reputation. And he respected that, her aunt pointed out. That says a lot about how he's changed. Ava nodded slowly. We're having dinner tonight. First real date since everything. About time, her aunt said with satisfaction. That evening, Graham picked Ava up from her new apartment, a modest place she shared with her aunt, close to Sinclair House. You look beautiful, he said when she opened the door. Ava smoothed her simple dress self-consciously. It's nothing fancy. I wasn't talking about the dress, Graham replied softly. The restaurant he'd chosen was neither too expensive nor too casual, a perfect middle ground that acknowledged both their worlds. I saw your press conference, Ava said once they were seated. How did I do? Graham asked. Perfect. Thank you for... She hesitated. For respecting my wishes. Graham reached across the table to take her hand. Always. As they ate, they carefully navigated conversation, rediscovering each other without the barriers of employer and employee. Tell me about the children at the center, Graham said. How are they responding to the programs? Ava's face lit up as she talked about the girls who came every day after school, their progress, their challenges. Graham listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions. We have this one girl, Mia, Ava said. She reminds me of myself at that age. So quiet, but her mind is always working. Last week she finished her first chapter book all on her own. That's wonderful, Graham said sincerely. Ava's smile faded slightly. But I'm worried, Graham. With the funding cuts, we might have to scale back some programs, the after-school tutoring, maybe even the weekend workshops. Is there anything I can do? Graham offered. Not as a savior, but as someone who believes in what you're doing. Ava shook her head. I appreciate it, but I need to solve this myself. The minute your money comes in, Reynolds' accusations look true. I understand, Graham said, though his frustration was evident. It's not fair that he can hurt your work with his lies. Life rarely is fair, Ava said with a small shrug. We'll manage somehow. After dinner, they walked along the river path, the night air crisp with the promise of winter. I've missed this, Graham admitted. Just talking with you. Being myself. Me too, Ava said softly. Even when I was angry, I missed you. Graham stopped walking, turning to face her. Ava, I know we're taking things slow, and I respect that, but I need you to know that my feelings haven't changed. If anything, they've grown stronger. Ava looked up at him, her heart pounding. Mine too. Gently, Graham cupped her face in his hands and kissed her, a tender, questioning kiss that asked rather than demanded. Ava responded, letting the walls around her heart crumble completely. When they parted, both were smiling. I should get you home, Graham said reluctantly. At her apartment door, Ava hesitated. Would you like to come in for coffee? My aunt is visiting a friend tonight. Graham's eyebrows rose. Are you sure? Just coffee, Ava clarified with a smile. But yes, I'm sure. Inside, as Ava prepared the coffee, Graham noticed a stack of papers on the dining table. Grant applications, Ava explained, seeing his interest. I'm applying for every educational grant I can find. Graham picked up one of the completed forms, impressed by the detailed program descriptions and careful budget planning. These are excellent, Ava. Thank you, she said, handing him a mug. It's a competitive field, though. For every grant we get, there are 10 we don't. As they sat on the small sofa, Graham asked, have you thought about corporate sponsorships, not from Langston, obviously, but other companies? Most want too much control, Ava sighed, or too much publicity. Graham was quiet for a moment, thinking, what if you had a champion, someone who could vouch for your work to other CEOs without your name being attached to mine? Like who? Like Vanessa, Graham suggested. She's respected in the business community, and her connection to you isn't public knowledge. Ava considered this. That might actually work. They spent the next hour brainstorming strategies, working together as equals for the first time. When Graham finally left, they both felt a new level of partnership forming between them. The next morning, Travis Reynolds was having breakfast when his assistant rushed in. Sir, you need to see this, she said, handing him her tablet. On the screen was a press release from Vanessa Langston announcing her appointment as chairperson of the Martindale Foundation, which would be expanding its educational initiatives nationwide. So what? Reynolds scoffed. Another Langston PR move. Keep reading, his assistant urged. The release went on to state that the Foundation's flagship partner, Sinclair House, had been selected through a rigorous vetting process months before any connection between Ms. Sinclair and the Langston family. An independent audit confirmed that all funding decisions had been made on merit alone. Reynolds's face darkened. Get my PR team on the phone, now. But the damage control came too late. By afternoon, 3 major business publications had run stories questioning Reynolds' motives in attacking a small literacy center. His company's stock took a minor hit as investors worried about leadership judgment. At Sinclair House, Ava was surprised by a flood of new donation offers and volunteer applications. The phone rang constantly. What's happening? She asked Diana, who was manning the front desk. Haven't you seen? Diana showed her the news on her phone. Vanessa Langston just legitimized us to the entire business world. We're the good guys in this story now. Ava was stunned. She hadn't asked for this, hadn't even known it was coming. Her first instinct was to call Graham, to ask if he was behind it. But before she could, her phone rang. It was Vanessa herself. I hope you don't mind my taking a more public role with the Foundation, Vanessa said without preamble. It seemed the most efficient way to neutralize Reynolds. Thank you, Ava managed. But why? Because my brother loves you, Vanessa said simply, and because what Reynolds did was wrong. Your work deserves to be judged on its own merits. After the call, Ava sat in her office processing what had happened. Graham had kept his promise. He hadn't stepped in to save her. Instead, he'd found another way to help that respected her independence. That evening, when Graham arrived at Sinclair House for his regular volunteer shift, Ava met him at the door. Did you know what your sister was planning? She asked directly. Not the specifics, Graham admitted. But we discussed the idea of her taking a more visible role with the Foundation. I hope you're not upset. Ava shook her head. I'm not. It was perfect, actually. A solution that didn't make me look like your charity case. Graham smiled. I'm learning. They worked side by side that evening, helping girls with their reading assignments. Ava couldn't help noticing how good Graham was with the children. Patient, encouraging, never talking down to them. Later, as they were closing up, Graham said casually, I have an idea I'd like to run by you. A personal one, not a business proposal. I'm listening, Ava said, turning off the lights. I've been thinking about my father's old cabin, up in the hills. It's sitting empty most of the time. What if we used it for weekend retreats for the girls? Nature hikes, campfires, storytelling under the stars. Ava's eyes widened at the thought. They'd love that. We could start small, Graham continued. Maybe 5 or 6 girls at a time, see how it goes. We? Ava questioned. Graham looked slightly embarrassed. I was hoping I could help, if that's okay. Ava smiled. I'd like that. Partners? Partners? Graham agreed. Over the next few months, their personal and professional lives began to intertwine in a healthy way. The weekend retreats were a huge success. Girls who had never left the city experienced nature for the first time, their worlds expanding with each visit. Graham and Ava's relationship deepened as well. They settled into a comfortable rhythm, dinners together, quiet evenings reading side by side, weekend walks in the hills. Graham even learned to cook, surprising Ava with simple but earnest meals. At Langston Technologies, the educational initiative was gaining momentum. Schools across the country were receiving technology packages and training. Graham found himself enjoying his work again, reconnecting with the mission his father had established. One evening, as they sat on the porch of the cabin after a retreat weekend, Graham took Ava's hand. "Happy?" he asked simply. "Very," she replied, leaning against his shoulder, "though I never imagined my life would turn out this way." "No," Graham teased. "You didn't plan on a billionaire walking into your literacy center?" Ava laughed. "More like I didn't plan on walking into a room full of executives with a broom." Graham's face grew serious. "Best joke I ever made." "It wasn't funny at the time," Ava reminded him. "No," Graham agreed, "but it changed my life. You changed my life, Ava." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the right moment." Ava's breath caught as he opened it, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "This isn't about headlines or image or anything but us," Graham said softly. "I love you, Ava Sinclair. I love your strength, your compassion, your vision. I love who I am when I'm with you, and I want to spend the rest of my life by your side as your partner in everything." Tears filled Ava's eyes. "Are you sure? You're bored. Your sister—" "Don't care," Graham interrupted. "And for the record, Vanessa adores you now, says you've been the making of me." Ava laughed through her tears. "She might be right." "So?" Graham prompted, his heart in his eyes. "Will you marry me, Ava? Not because of a joke or a bet, but because I love you more than I ever thought possible." "Yes," Ava whispered. "Yes, I will." As Graham slipped the ring onto her finger, Ava felt a sense of wonder. The quiet maid who had entered a room with a broom, determined to stay invisible, had found not just love but a true partnership, a life where she was seen, valued, heard. 1 year later, Ava stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of Sinclair House, now expanded to include a residential program for girls from rural areas. Beside her stood Graham, handsome in his tuxedo, his hand resting supportively at the small of her back. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our first anniversary," Ava addressed the crowd of supporters, volunteers, and students. "When I dreamed of creating this place, I never imagined how far we would come in just 1 year." She smiled at the girls seated in the front row. "Every day, these young women remind me that with determination and support, any dream is possible, even dreams that seem too big." Graham squeezed her hand gently as she continued. "Today, I'm proud to announce that the Sinclair Langston Foundation will be opening 5 new literacy centers across the state next year." The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled notes. After the formal speeches, as Ava mingled with donors, she was handed a bouquet of wildflowers by one of the students. "These came for you, Miss Ava," the girl said. Tucked among the blooms was a small note. "To my wife, who taught me how to truly see. Forever yours, GL." Ava smiled, tucking the note into her pocket. Just then, a journalist approached her. "Ms. Sinclair Langston, a moment of your time." Ava nodded politely. "Of course. You need to see this," the journalist whispered, showing her a phone screen. A new video was circulating online. Travis Reynolds, speaking at a tech conference. "The Sinclair Langston Literacy Initiative is nothing but a vanity project," he was saying bitterly. "She only got funding because she seduced a billionaire. It's a disgrace to genuine educational programs." Ava's stomach tightened. Just when everything was going so well, Reynolds was trying to drag her name through the mud again. Across the room, Graham caught her expression and started making his way toward her. "Will you be responding to these allegations?" the journalist pressed. Ava took a deep breath, standing tall. This was the moment she had been preparing for her whole life, the moment when she would choose, protect her peace or fight for her truth. Graham reached her side, his face concerned. "Everything okay?" Ava looked at her husband, then at the room full of people who believed in her vision, at the girls whose lives were being transformed, at the community she had built. She turned back to the journalist, her decision made. "Yes," she said firmly, "I will be responding, because the truth matters, and because those girls deserve to know that when someone tries to diminish your achievements, you stand up, you speak out, you show them that your voice matters." Graham smiled proudly, taking her hand. "We'll face it together." And as they stood side by side, ready to take on whatever challenges came their way, Ava knew one thing for certain. This was no fairy tale. It was better. It was real. The end.